Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you all, ladies, for taking the time to listen to one another and come back and share and, just witnessing and holding that space for the other woman. Rooms like this, they don't happen by accident and they don't happen often, right? And tonight, we just sort of move through these essential stages and different dimensions of our lives and what it really looks like to create outside of the system. And this is just the tip of the iceberg because of the time that we had tonight. And as you can see, we're running just a little bit over, but we're closing right now. We could definitely use more time with this to go deeper. But, first we started excavation, right? That was a thread running through, Reverend Evelyn had us looking honestly at the inner architecture within us. And then Lois had us name, what is buried underneath, like our desires, right? That we just sort of push aside. And then Tiana, she asked us to remove that armor of all of the titles and that identity that we've been carrying around and just surviving with. And then when we're able to find that blueprint, right? When we feel that blueprint within us activated, we can build, right? So you took everything, you excavated as much as possible, right? And everything you found in your blueprint, everything that's in your body, like it's already there. It's just waiting to be built. So the process for this is really like that excavation, the blueprint, activating that blueprint within you, the architecture, and then the build, right? And let's talk about the build, that space for building and what's possible, because you were asked to go into this space and to sort of name what was trying to emerge. I'm sorry I couldn't get all the questions in there for you guys to be able to follow that. But as much as possible, you went in there with what you already like was feeling within you. And then you were asked, the most important thing I feel like is to hold that same space for another woman. You had the opportunity to be the midwife and the architect, right? And in that time, you learn something that most women never learn in rooms that cost them years, right? Is that when a woman is held at the right level by the right person or people with the right type of questions, something can start to move in her that wouldn't have been able to be moved on its own, her alone, right? And that's what becomes possible when women build and create together with intention, with discipline, and in covenant with one another, right? Because over the past few months, we started off this series with the first Salon in this ancestral grounding, calling in our ancestors and looking at the blueprints that they've left for us that are useful for this moment in history that we're in. And then the second Salon was about dangerous imagination, how to dare dreams. Like we are living in the imagination of our ancestors, right? So it is our turn now to dare dreams about what is possible when we build outside of the system. And tonight we got a taste of that, of what is possible, right? And we know that it is not one dimensional, right? We can now see that building outside of the system, when you think about it, it's multi-layered, it's sort of nested, right? The liberation of your mind makes possible the liberation of your body, makes possible the liberation of your relationships. It makes possible the liberation of everything that you do, from your leadership work to your work in the world, right? So what you experienced tonight is just a glimpse of what I'm building, right? a sovereign space, a sovereign society for women who are ready to remember who they are, right? This is for women who want to be the architects of the new world order that we're moving into, right? It's not like a mastermind or a coaching program, but what we prototyped here tonight and experienced is sort of like an architectural incubator in a way, right? And I love the idea of prototyping because with prototyping, okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else, right? It takes some of that weight off. And when you're in space with someone to be able to do that. If we look at the world right now, and we see all of the different ways that they trying to come for us. And when I say us, I mean women. I mean Black women. I mean brown women. I mean white women, like all the women, right? As if we need to be fixed or regulated or we need permission. Like I literally watched a podcast where this man said, start paying men more money. And when you pay more money, then there will be this need of women needing men, needing to be attached to men because they won't be able to survive. I mean, literally, this is what they're talking about. And then there is the women's empowerment, right? That we have been sold, that is just this. I feel like it's just been this elegant way of asking us to survive inside systems that were not built for us to flourish. You know, Lois touched on this a little bit. We see it all so clearly now. And so the danger in to the system is in us being evolved, being resourced, and building together. And specific, when I say building together, I want to dare to dream right now what is possible, right? I'm talking about bodies of work like what Lois does, right? Reclaiming our physical knowing and outside of what culture has told us that our bodies are for. Our bodies are meant for, our bodies to be used for, right? In relationships, right? New models of partnerships and relationships that are not organized around the patriarchal definition of what commitment or love is supposed to be. Then the spiritual practices and traditions outside of institutional religion that centers the feminine and the ancestral and the embodied sacred, right? Like what Reverend Evelyn took us through tonight. And then there's finances, right? We didn't even get to go into that, but that is next, and that is an important part. Wealth built on our own terms outside of the system, and enough of it where we can change narratives, where we can create safe communities to elevate the work of each other, right? And then our work in the world, our creative practices, our healing modalities, all of that stuff, right? That does not require any sort of validation to exist or matter. So for me, I'm creating that space and I'm calling it the feminati. And it's created as a counter architecture of what exists, a space where parallel systems are formed and created with deep intention by women who are not here to play by them games no more. No more fighting for a seat at the table. No more putting our bodies on the line in the name of resistance, right? I feel like it is time for us to take our feminine fear and rage and use it to transform our lives and our bodies and our communities, right? Time to build our own tables, correct. But that requires more excavation, right? And that needs to be done because if we won't find the gold or the treasure and that blueprint that is buried within us for so long that's been forgotten, we won't find our way. And that's why I've been calling from last year. I said this year is the year of the great remembering. Women, everyone actually, but women in particular are remembering who they are. And that remembering only happens when we excavate. But imagine as you are digging for that gold and that treasure, you have a midwife to hold you. And as the midwife, you get to witness this birth and this remembering process happening in another. When I think about this, I think about like the architect is like, you know, oh, this is not gonna work. Nobody's gonna come if I build it. Nobody's gonna believe, people aren't ready for it. And the midwife is like, yes, they will. Yes, they will. Well, let's try it this way. Why don't we look at it this way? Right? You get to dream dangerously. You get to bring your boldest ideas, not your safest ones, into a space, and then you get to architect the most audacious new things or an expansion of a thing already that the world has never experienced but needs for this time. That is what this series has been about. So the Feminati is not opened yet, but I'm extending an invitation to any of you tonight who felt a rumbling in your system. Okay? I'm going to put a link in the chat for you all, and the link will take you to an interest form. And then I'm also going to share, I have a flyer or a document you all can read that will give you more information about that as well. Okay? So let me go ahead and put that in the chat for you now. All right, here we go. So this is the first document here, and let me get the interest form to look at. If you have any questions, reach out to me and let me know. But this now ends my transmission. We're going to close the evening now because we went way over time. But Reverend Evelyn and Lois and I, we will stay in the room if you guys have any questions for us. But for those of you that need to leave, again, I appreciate you all so much for just showing up here tonight. I've been sending y'all invitations, and I know some of y'all got tired of me, but this is why, because this has just been such an important conversation for us to have, and we're going to continue to have these conversations and go a lot deeper with them. So with that, I'm going to say good night.